Welcome to my presentation on artificial intelligence as a tool for making meaning, keeping the human in the loop. So let's look at several pieces of that title. First, by artificial intelligence, I mean what's generally referred to as generative artificial intelligence programs such as ChatGPT and Claude, DeepSeek, etc. So that kind of AI. Then I want to treat that AI as a tool. So it's going to be something that we use in qualitative data analysis. And in that qualitative data analysis, I see our primary goal as making meaning. Okay, so we've got a tool for making meaning that happens to be a specific kind of artificial intelligence. And then the last thing I want to emphasize is this idea of keeping the human in the loop so that, we really explicitly take responsibility for our role in doing the analysis. We don't expect the program to do the analysis for us. Instead, we really have to be an active participant in this data analysis process. Okay, so what are we looking at when we're doing qualitative data analysis? Well, in essence, we're making sense of large amount of text. So typically now that would, of course, be large computer files, but in this slide, I've acted as if we printed them out and we're really surrounded by our data. And if you've ever done a qualitative study with, 12, 20 individual interviews, 5 or 6 focus groups, you know how much data you're dealing with. So we've got a whole process of interpretive meaning making that's at the core of qualitative research. And that's what we're going to apply our artificial intelligence to. But AI not only produces powerful summaries of the data, it also allows researchers to engage in extended conversations about the ongoing analysis process. So I see our use of AI, effective use of it, as really coming in 2 parts. First, this idea of getting data summaries, and then engaging in deeper conversations to get more interpretive about what we're finding with the program. So, I see artificial intelligence as a tool for qualitative data analysis that's both new and unique, and researchers can use it for tasks that go well beyond traditional qualitative software. So going beyond that kind of software, it's very different from first attaching codes to data segments, then aggregating those codes into categories, and somehow reducing the categories into themes. So that's how we've been doing qualitative analysis since at least the 1980s. Now I think we've got some very new alternatives. So I assume most of you are already familiar with qualitative data software, traditional software, but I'll go over it at least to some extent. And so here we've got an example. It happens to be from the Max QDA program. Wouldn't be much different if we were using Atlas TI and Vivo, etc. And what we've got on the right-hand side is text that we're coding, and on the left-hand side, we've got codes that we can assign to that text. In this example, we've decided that the code better use of time is an effective way to label what the respondent is saying at this point in the interview. So we go through the interview attaching codes to text, and as we do that, we typically inductively create new codes as we find something in the text that we haven't effectively labeled before. We create a new code for that, and as we go along doing that, we create a code book, which is what you see on the left, the available codes which we can add to. All right, here we are further along in the process where we're aggregating codes into categories. If you look at the code book on the left-hand side, it's much more complex. It's hierarchically organized so that things that are further to the left are bigger, broader, more general codes, and then the other codes are listed underneath them. We look to the right. This happens to be a different data set, but it's further along, as I say, in the coding process. And we can attach different codes to any given segment. Some of these segments have 5 or 6 codes attached to them. Also, if you look in the upper left-hand corner where it says code system, there are 2,363 codes attached to this data set. Okay. And the particular code that's being attached now, caught up, has 111 usages. So we've really got a lot of complex material attached to our original text here. And sometimes this is referred to as fracturing the text. We've broken it into little codes. We've assembled those codes into categories. So we're saying the original data, instead of just dealing with all of that text, we've done a fair amount of data reduction by creating these codes and categories. But how do we get further than that? Well, I'm particularly skeptical about how we get further than that, and I've drawn this little slide to show lots of different codes that somehow end up in 4 very discrete, nicely organized themes, a sort of miraculous transformation. When we go to write up qualitative data, we don't have hundreds of codes, dozens of themes. We typically have, dozens of categories. We typically have 3, 4, 5 very clear-cut themes that are the core interpretation that we have for the data. And how we get from all those codes to a specific set of themes, if you've ever used qualitative software, you know that that's a lot of that's subjective and it's up to you as an analyst. And so I think that this is, really a gap we need to begin filling. All right, so if we're going to interact with an AI about data, if that's so radically different, it really raises the question, why rely on coding? We're going to see, as I show you a little bit more, that we really can do things differently with this generative artificial intelligence. But let's first ask, what's the cost of shifting from coding to AI-based analysis? Isn't AI just a black box? Well, the reality is, yes, AI is a black box. Even the programmers who created it don't know exactly how it works. So from our point of view, we need to evaluate how well it works. What does it do for us? Does it really capture the content of the data? Does it really help us interpret the data? Those are the kinds of questions we need to be asking. So the role of AI in qualitative data analysis, it's a tool. I've said that from the beginning, and now's a good time to emphasize it. It's a tool for interpreting data and making meaning. But how do we make use of this new tool? Well, how do we interact with AI to produce the desired results? The key is prompts. You literally have a blank line where you ask it a question about the data. In this case, what I've demonstrated with the boldface type in a different font is how I've been creating these visuals, graphics that you've seen on the left. I told the AI, create a picture of a robot talking with a man where the man has a speech bubble that contains the text, create a picture of a robot, and that's exactly the text that I presented here. Create a picture of a robot talking to a man, and there it is. Okay, so in other words, all I did was type that text into the AI, and it created this graphic. Well, we're going to do the same thing when we type text into the AI to help us analyze our data. So what I recommend is, after you've attached your data to the program, that you begin with broad, unstructured queries about the data. You want to know what's in the data. This summarizing process is usually the first step. So we might ask, what are the key topics in this document? What were the main themes with regard to your research question? Give me a list of what mattered most to these participants, okay? So we can ask for our data in all kinds of formats. The list could be bulleted points if you want, but start by asking the AI to summarize what's in the data, our interviews typically. Next, we pursue a deeper conversation about the proposed themes, and that's going to, if you will, thicken the analysis. It's going to take us beyond just what I call candidate themes, what the robot, the AI presents in the beginning. How do we decide what we want to do with those? Well, tell me more about the theme of blank. Pick one of the initial themes that the program suggests. How did it matter to these participants? Out of the list of themes, which ones mattered most to the participants, and why was that? So we can go through the initial suggestions from the AI and ask deeper questions to get at the kind of meaning that's behind those themes. Finally, what I suggest as a third step is to review the actual text to ensure your themes fit the data. One of the issues with AI is that it can hallucinate by finding things that aren't really there. All right, how do we deal with that? Well, we go through the data, we read it, we take responsibility for our interpretation of that data by first asking, do the data support each theme? Are there really enough passages in the text that really back up our candidate theme? Then we check to see if we've missed something. Is there really some good thematic material that wasn't covered by what the AI has produced? Finally, at the same time, is a really good opportunity to select the quotes that illustrate each theme. You know, again, classically, what we're going to do is report the number of themes there were, define and expand on what those themes were, and then use illustrative quotes to demonstrate how the participants talked about each of those themes. Well, as you go back through the data to make sure that the AI captured things effectively, then that's a good time to get those illustrative quotes. But to interpret the analyses we do with AI, we always need to keep the human in the loop. AI is a tool, and it's our responsibility about how we use it. Okay, so as we go back through the data, we look at interpreting the AI's candidate themes. Do they really fit the data? Are there quotes that really support them? We really need to be checking up on that analysis, taking responsibility for what we're going to be reporting. Well, what about the issue of bias in AI? That's something that, we really need to consider. Can we trust the analyses that we're getting? Well, we need to be very careful about this because AIs are trained on available data. I like to say it's like as if you had 1 million Wikipedias in there, literally all the text that the AI can find on the internet. But if that data that it's absorbing is biased, then the AI's analyses are going to be biased. So we really need to consider what is the knowledge base that we're applying to our data. Now, that is not really all that different from things that we need to consider when we're looking at human bias in qualitative data analysis. The approach we generally use to deal with our own limitations is reflexivity. And we can be reflexive about our race, gender, sexuality, nationality, age. How do those things and many more affect the way that we view the data? Now, we can't tell how the AI is viewing the data. We have to use our own knowledge of what we think should be in the data, the kinds of things that we're expecting, that there are areas of bias, not just for humans, but that we can evaluate and think about for the AI itself. And that includes broader issues like cultural context, historical context, all of those things that we need to consider in evaluating the kind of results we're getting from our artificial intelligence-based analysis. AI has no reflexivity. So once again, everything I've been describing here, it's essential to keep the human in the loop. We need to supply the reflexivity that guides our analyses. And nothing can replace your familiarity with the data. So we've come back to this slide. We have to read that data. We have to know what's in there. We have to immerse ourselves in the data. So when AI presents candidate themes, do they make sense to you? Do they indicate bias to you? You can't just dump a bunch of data into an AI and expect to be able to pump out results. You've got to know your data. You've got to evaluate what the AI gives you. You've got to keep the human in the loop at every step. All right. How will AI like ChatGPT change what we do as qualitative researchers? Well, let's look what the AI can accomplish here. Okay, and not just ChatGPT. I've got 3 robots here. You have your choice. All right. One of the things we can do with AI is to brainstorm new topics. So when we're beginning to work with our research questions, we can feed them into the AI, get reactions, and then question what the AI is telling us. Ask for more detail. We can really interact with that AI to probe our own thinking, to become more reflexive, to have a really meaningful, if you will, exchange back and forth between the extensive database that AI can pull up versus your own assumptions and thoughts on a topic. Then, once we get into the analysis process proper, we've got these 2 things that I've been emphasizing: assimilating large volumes of data, really being able to summarize all our interviews for us. Okay, we can take them 1 interview at a time, or we can look at the whole data set. But once we've got it into the AI, we can really summarize that content in very effective ways. Once we do that, we can pursue it in more depth to provide analytic insights, to go beyond those summaries. I've been emphasizing having a conversation with the AI about your data. All right. That implies that we've got a sort of relationship with the program. And how can we envision our relationship with AI? Well, the most common thing that I've heard or seen in articles I've read is assistant, that somehow the AI is going to be our assistant. I think it goes well beyond that myself. And so I've taken the word assistant and pumped it into a synonym finder and put out all the possible other words that go with assistant, and went through that process several times to create that, alphabetical list that you see there of possible words that would summarize that relationship. Ones I like better than assistant are co-creator, collaborator, partner. Now, some of these kind of, if you will, anthropomorphize the AI, that is, treat it as if it were human, but, we are working with it as our partner, as our collaborator in generating the analysis, where when I say we interact with it, we have exchanges with it, we ask questions to it. Okay, so this is more than just an assistant who does our, simple tasks, helps us out with things that we'd rather not do ourselves. It really is, something that we work with much more closely to produce deeper insights than I would expect from just an assistant. Now that brings us to our question, and we're getting towards the end of the presentation here. Is AI a new paradigm for qualitative data analysis? Well, let's consider what it means to have a paradigm in a given field. Number one, there's consensus about the goals that the field should pursue. Okay, what is it we're trying to accomplish? And then what kind of consensus do we have about the methods the field should use to reach those goals? So when we've got a solid paradigm, we know the kinds of results we want to pursue, and we know the kind of methods we should be using to pursue those goals. And that's what I mean by having a clear paradigm in a field like qualitative data analysis. So is AI a new paradigm? I personally say not quite, because it doesn't change our goal. Okay, the most important thing is what we're trying to accomplish, and that's to interpret our data in meaningful ways. So what do I see AI as? Instead, I think of it as a new invention that makes it easier to reach that core goal. Okay, I'll make a bold prediction here. Well, I would summarize the use of AI now as not very effective. Okay, the tool our robots got here is a good old-fashioned wrench. Well, to me, that's like using AI for coding, and I think people are trying putting a lot of effort into trying to use AI to do coding. Well, instead, I think we need to see coding as an older, well-established tool, and AI as a new and very different tool. So here's my bold prediction. AI is really a different kind of tool entirely, and it's a disruptive invention. It's going to replace coding as our main method for analyzing qualitative data. So if we come back 5 years from now, where will we see AI? Well, I think ultimately we need to take our own self-reflective stance. We've got to explore AI as a powerful tool at the same time that we don't see it as completely automating qualitative analysis. That's not going to happen. And to be really effective, we've got to keep the human in the loop. Well, here's my question about 5 years from now. I asked the AI to generate a picture of the robot on the yellow brick road. Well, it put a rainbow and everything in the background and a vision of Oz, I think, on the right. But at any rate, the process of promoting, using, exploring AI as a tool for qualitative data analysis is not going to happen on its own. It's not just gradual social change or a passive diffusion of innovation. Instead, I think motivated researchers need to be convincing their colleagues to do things differently. What are we going to do? Well, you're watching this YouTube. That's a start, because we're going to publish articles and books, give talks, go to conferences, create new software, do webinars, and create more YouTube videos to help people understand what it is that AI can do that's so different about qualitative data analysis. Thank you.